Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Heavy Water 77, all things, everything Styx YouTube channel, man. And hard to believe this is our fifth episode already, man. Time is just flying by. But I'm Jerry, and this show would not even be 10% good without this guy, my partner, because he's the talent of the show.
Part of it. I think we work very well together,
And
Jerry.
I'm talking about Joseph Staub, man. How you doing, brother?
Doing great. Excited to be back here. We're wrapping up the wooden nickel era. I'm a little emotional about it. I've really been loving
A little
going back and
teary-eyed.
getting to
Yeah,
check these albums out because I had never really. Of course, I'd heard them. I had this CD for a couple
right.
years now, so I'd known the albums, but I never really dove into them quite as much as I have in preparing for these shows. So I'm really happy that we got to do this, if for nothing else, to revisit these albums. But I'm kind of emotional. We're going to announce it at the end of this episode about what we're doing next week. But yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, and thanks for all that. Been checking out Joseph's shorts on YouTube, man. We get a lot of views for them, so thank you for that. And we can use some more views and some more subscriptions, people. So tell a friend, tell an enemy, whoever. Just tell somebody, man. We'd really appreciate it. And thank you for those that have subscribed and checked them out. Hopefully, we've done okay. I mean, I'm not the best, I know that, but Joseph's a lot better than I am, so I get it. But what we're doing today is we're going to be talking about their fourth Wood and Nickel album, Man of Miracles. So, Joe, you got some background on this album, man.
Yeah, sure. So this is the fourth and final Styx album released on Wood and Nickel Records, released in October of 1974. So a pretty decent gap from the last album. We talked about the first three albums came out pretty much bang, 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 within almost a year of each other. And then it took almost a full year from Serpent is Rising through to Man of Miracles. In my opinion, which we'll get to here in a minute, I think that was a good thing. I think that they really took their time on this one, and we'll see how that turned out. But this is the first album not to be recorded at the Paragon in Chicago. This was recorded at Golden Voice Studios in South Pekin, Illinois. Um, Produced by John Ryan and Bill Trout, who had produced the first two albums but did not produce Serpent is Rising. And this one charted a little bit better than the last album had. This went to up to 154 on the Billboard charts. But what I noticed, both from the last album and from this album, there were no singles released. Um, and it wasn't until after this album came out that Lady broke big finally. But from Serpent is Rising and Man of Miracles, there were no singles released from these albums. And I wonder if that had something to do with why the albums didn't sell too well. But also, I don't know what kind of a uh, necessarily what kind of a vote of confidence that is from the record label when there are no
True.
singles released from two albums
Yeah.
in a row,
Right.
especially when the co-producer of the album is one of the owners of the record label.
Mm.
So we'll see what that says about them. But yeah, so this is just a little bit of they took a little bit of a break between Serpent is Rising and Man of Miracles. Like we said, they were going kind of full throttle. Took a little bit of a break. In my opinion, I think that was a good thing. Do you have anything else you wanted to kind of say about
Yeah.
the background here?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. You can definitely tell there's almost like kind of a freshness to this, like a arrested, feeling to this album, which, like I said, I mean, I'm gonna say it right now. This is probably, we always talk about how great JY's vocals is on this one, but man, this, in my opinion, is his best vocal album, in my opinion, with some of these songs. His voice is just awesome. But I'll talk more about that when we get to the songs. But there are a couple reviews. All Music gave it 2.5 stars, and the Rolling Stone Album Guide, which is 1 star. And as I said before, it's like usually if critics ban something and shit on it, that means it's pretty freaking good in my opinion. So, but anyway, we'll see if we did like this album now. So we'll start with song number one, "Rock and Roll Feeling," written by JY and JC. What do you guys say
Yeah,
about this
so
song?
um, I noted that as well. We kind of talked about it last week a little bit that after John Serluski had so much to do with the last album, that he really didn't have that much to do with this album or the next album. He only has two co-writing credits on this album and some vocal harmonies. He doesn't have any lead vocals to himself, but he does contribute some writing, some harmonies, as well as some synthesizer playing, which I think is really cool. on a couple songs. But as an opener, this is a great rocking opener. JY, like you said, this might be my favorite album for his vocals. I think he sounds rejuvenated in a way. Because on Serpent is Rising, he was kind of a little bit pushed to the back, a little bit, I would say. You had a lot of Dennis and JC on Serpent is Rising, and I think one of the most successful parts of Styx 2, which we talked about how much we loved that album, was JY. And I think he really gets the forefront here on this album. He sings vocals on at least half the album, splits it pretty evenly with Dennis. And I think JY sounds in great voice on this album. Um, the harmonies on the chorus are just so cool. Really great harmonies. And I noticed there's a really prominent bass sound on this song that doesn't necessarily go with the rest of the album. It's not as prominent on the rest of the album, but the bass is really in the forefront here on this track. What do you think of Rock and Roll Feeling?
Yeah, and another point is it's like I think JY does actually every solo on this album, if I
Yeah.
understand right. So, kind of JC was, I don't know, I wouldn't say checked out yet, but you can tell his contributions are getting less and less, per album. But anyway, yeah, I think this is another classic JY rockin' tune, and it smokes in my opinion. It's just all opening songs off the four Wood Nickel albums are just great, great songs by JY in my opinion, man. And you mentioned the harmonies on that chorus. It's a rock and roll feeling, just really cool. And you actually got some harmonized leads on this one, from both of them. It sounds really cool. And JY is just using the full use of his vocal range in this one. We talked about, used to mention how we both agreed this is his best vocal album. And man, this is a great way to start an album, dude. I love this song. I think it's on one of the Come Sail Away greatest hits album too. I think I have
Mm-hmm.
that somewhere, but I think that song's on
Yes.
this one.
And it's
But any,
also, this was one of the songs from this album that was on the Wooden Nickel Best of. Um, there were three songs from this album that were on the Wooden Nickel Best of, and all three are JY songs, which I find
yeah,
very interesting.
interesting, yeah. All right, then we move to a the next song, "Having a Ball," which is another JY and JC collab. Man, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this kind of just keeps the momentum going. It's a very similar song to Rock and Roll Feeling. Again, a JY and JC collab with writing and JY on vocals. More great chorus harmonies. It's just a very similar song, but again, it's a great song. It's a great continuation of the opening track. The guitar work on this album, I kind of highlighted. There's some really great guitar work going on this song. Um, but yeah, just a great kind of keeping the momentum going from the first track into this track.
Yeah, man. JY again killing it on vocals. I think the song in general is just bluesy and nasty sounding, which I like. And I say this, I've been saying this at every Wooden Nickel album. The panazzos with that bass and drum, man, on these albums are just awesome. We need to appreciate these guys more, man. Put their names in there when it comes to bass players and drummers. I'm guilty of that too. But once I went back and listened to these albums, man, they should definitely be mentioned at least. Honorable mention. Come on. They deserve a lot more credit, man. I thought this might have been a John Sterlewski lead because it sounded a little different from JY style, but I checked into it and it is JY doing it, the lead on this one as well. As I said, he does pretty much all, I think he does every solo, like I said. But cool sing along chorus, man. And when they say band effort, this song is a band effort, blah, blah, blah. This song is a total fucking band effort, in my opinion. Excuse my language. I get overexcited sometimes. But I love this track, man. Another great rocking track, man. I agree. So then we move on to the next track, which is a Dennis song, Golden Lark. What do you got on it?
Yeah, this is a cool kind of just proggy ballad almost. Dennis's vocals are great. I think Dennis sounds in great vocals on this album as well. I think they both of them are at the kind of peak of their vocal powers, which I'll kind of talk about when we get to the end. Transitions then over to the next album that we're going to talk about. But there's some really cool synthesizer work from John Serlewski on this track. I think that this is a really cool kind of more ballad prog song that will then transition well into the next track, which is more of an epic prog song.
Yeah, I dig the piano playing on this one. And you mentioned, I kind of thought it was a cello at first, but I guess it's JC's synthesizer in the background
Mm-hmm.
there. Really cool sounding, man. this is one of those songs that over the years grew on me. I didn't really love it, for the longest time, but the more I listen to it, the more I'm finding myself liking it a lot. Um, the ending is kind of very hypnotic sounding. You know what I mean? It's like you listen to it, it's
Hmm.
like, it's just like, okay, okay. It just gets to you. It's really cool. And it does, it segues kind of into the next song, which is
It
a
does.
song for Suzanne. What do you got on that?
Yeah, I noted that as well. That the outro of Golden Lark segues right into the thunder at the beginning of Song for Suzanne, which that's such a cool intro with the thunder and the kind of effects that kind of bleed into the music where the instruments start coming in. Really cool intro. It's just an epic song. There's kind of two epics on this album, in my opinion. This is the first one. Um, and I think Dennis sounds great. When you think of a love song that he's writing for his wife, this is not the kind of song you would think that he would be writing. But I think it's
Yeah,
much better than some of the stuff he'd write for her later on.
true,
Um, I'd much rather hear a song that sounds like this than a song like Babe.
true.
So I think that this is a really cool, epic proggy track. One of the kind of last really proggy tracks of this era, in my opinion. And I think it's a really great track, one of my favorites on the album.
Spoiler, I do like Babe, by the way.
I like it too, but I'd much rather hear this.
True, I agree with you on that one. Yeah, you mentioned the cool storm effects. Actually, kind of ironic because it was actually storming here at the same time, so I kind of got it like in all fronts, the storming effect. But uh, yeah, I mean, Dennis is totally in full form vocal wise. As we mentioned, these type of songs are in his wheelhouse. He had full reign in the studio with all kinds of keyboard effects. And you mentioned the real proggy sound to it, which it really has. Um, and it actually kind of turns into kind of a moderate rocker, maybe, with the guitars and that main piano riff comes in a little bit later. And that key break around 310 mark, it's like a really cool sounding synthesizer comes in around the 310 mark. I don't know who's playing that, if it's JC, Dennis, I don't know, but it's really cool. Lots of stuff to like here. I mean, if it's the kitchen sink song where Dennis threw everything you possibly could in the studio, I think, in my opinion. I read notes, guys, because I'm old and I don't have the young brain Joseph has, so I have to kind of write these notes down. So if I
I
kind of
have it
like,
too. Don't worry.
okay, cool. So yeah, I got to kind of like, check where I'm at sometimes. So, but all in all, it's a really cool song. I do dig it as well. So then we'll move into the next song, which was actually written by James Young by himself, A Man Like Me. What do you got?
Yeah, cool way to end side one here. It's a shorter, just kind of classic JY rocker. The doot doots get a little old after a point, but I other than that, this is a kind of a and not in a bad way, but this is probably as generic as the album gets. This is something you would see, I would say, almost more on some of the earlier albums, more than some of the more evolved songwriting that you see elsewhere on this album. But I think it's still a cool track. And what I really love is there's the really cool piano outro in this track. You can hear the piano coming in really prominently at the end of the song, and I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, I probably like it a little better than you do. I mean, this has JY's fingerprints all over it, vocally, writing, whatever, leads. It's just a total JY song. Probably, in my opinion, the most JY song on the album. Um, I think it's a really cool rock and roll song, man. He's just tearing it up with those leads on this one. Harmonies, 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 man. This band does it so well, man. Um, the rhythm of Dennis's keys, Chuck and John's bass at the same time, all through this are just, man, fantastic, man. These are top-notch musicians, man. And even Dennis, I don't think gets enough credit for his musicianship, as far as,
Agreed.
we talk about, great keyboard players there now, but he is not mentioned, as again, at least mention him as an honorable mention, please, because he deserves it, man. But yeah, I think this is a really good song, dude. I think it smokes, man. So I think this album's on fire so far. So let's flip it over with weird song, Lies, originally written by the Knickerbockers. It is a cover. Interesting thing about this song is that it was actually replaced by unfinished song on best thing, excuse me, on the second pressing of it, which a friend of ours has, who's going to be on our next episode. And but anyway, we're talking about Lies, dude. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of weird. listening to this song, it almost sounds like if Styx had covered an early Beatles song. Almost, you can hear it has that kind of a sound to it with the harmonies and the rhythm and everything like that, and the kind of lyrics. It sounds like if Styx had done a cover of something off of like one of the first couple Beatles albums. I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't dislike it, but I can definitely understand why it was replaced on future pressings of the album. Like you had said, on the second pressing, when it was still called Man of Miracles, it was replaced by Best Thing, the single off the first album. And then on the RCA Records version, when it was just called Miracles, it was replaced by Unfinished Song. So unless you have the first vinyl pressing or this CD, you do not have this song. And I can definitely understand why they probably took it off because, I mean, at that point, they were pretty much writing all their own material. I'm not exactly sure where this came out of. If they really just kind of just, if somebody recommended the song to them or they really wanted to do it. But I can definitely see why they're like, okay, let's put something else on here, especially something like Unfinished Song that hadn't been on an album yet. I can definitely see why they would put that on instead. But yeah, if there was a song that I had to skip on this album, it would be this, but I probably wouldn't just listening to the album. Uh, what do you think of it?
Yeah, and you know what? One thing I do want to say is, there are, like on Wikipedia and stuff has information on these albums, but all in all, when you try to look up and dig up stuff about the songs back then, it's hard to find really any information. If you guys know of anywhere to find some information on, these songs, where they came from, this and that, I really like to know. So if you can let us know, I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, I can do without this song too. It's okay. As you mentioned, I think they did the right thing by replacing it with the best thing. Even though they did release that on an earlier album, I still think that's probably better to listen to it twice than this one. I I don't hate it, like you said, but and I wouldn't skip it, but I can definitely do without it. The highlights, though, again, is Chuck's bass on this one, dude. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just awesome, dude. There's a really cool scream from JY in it too. But other than that, I could really, take it or leave it. I would probably take it more than leave it, but on the album is probably the song I can do the least, if that's makes any sense. But anyway, enough of that one. Let's move on to the next song, a Dennis song called Evil Eyes.
Yeah, when this first started out, especially after the last song, where I'm like, kind of, this kind of starts out as a pretty generic Dennis ballad, and I'm kind of like, oh, okay, here we go, another just kind of generic Dennis ballad. But then, about a minute and a half into the song, it really develops into something more that I really liked. It kind of develops this groove. There's this like bass and guitar thing that kind of gets in, and it kind of really lifts the song up, in my opinion. If it would have just been this kind of generic piano ballad, I probably wouldn't have been that big of a fan of it. But I really like the way that the bass and the guitar and the drums and the harmony is really kind of help to evolve the song. Uh, Even on just the ballad parts, Dennis vocally sounds amazing. But I really like how everything else kind of helps lift the song up after that like minute and a half point. I really ended up liking the song more than I thought I was going to when the song started.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's a really cool, piano type song from Dennis. I think, it's now I don't know if I invented this saying or not, but if I am, then I'm gonna trademark it. I think it's a really sleek, moderately mellow song. I know that kind of sounds
Hmm.
weird, but it just popped in my head for some reason. All in all, it's a good tune, man. It's a nice change of pace on the album. I think we actually have JC getting a scream on this one, I think, too. So there's like
Mm-hmm.
screams all through this album, but they're really cool. So and around the 250 mark, I love that lead over that Chuck's main bass riff, which I think is really. I am not going to stop talking about Chuck and John Panasso during at least during these albums because they're fucking awesome. But yeah, I don't know, it's a good tune, man. So I agree with everything you said, and we'll move on to the next song, which is Southern Woman, written by Dennis Young and Ray Brandel. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know who Ray Brandel is, do you?
I do. I looked this
All
up.
right. That's good.
He only has four songwriting credits to his name. All four of them are with Styx. He co-wrote Witch Wolf on the last album. He co-wrote two songs on this album. And then 8 years later, or 7 years later, he would pop back up again to write one of the greatest Styx songs, in my opinion, Halfpenny Two Penny. He was the co-writer with JY on Halfpenny Two Penny. So he wrote 3 songs during the Wood and Nickel era, and then didn't write anything again until Halfpenny Two Penny. So I kind of found that out. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Pretty cool to know. Yep.
But this, you can tell, is a very Skinner influenced song. The riffs, even JY is trying to sound a little different vocally on this than he does on the rest of the album. I mean, of course, this is right when Skinner was breaking big. They had 2 albums out by this point, both of which had done very well. They were a big deal in music, very Southern rock. They were the biggest Southern rock band at the time. One of the things I noticed, there are certain parts of this song where JY's vocals sound like Danny Joe Brown of Molly Hatchet, but Molly Hatchet didn't exist yet. Molly Hatchet wouldn't release their debut album for another year at least. So I found that kind of funny that uh he kind of has that kind of points where he has that kind of growl that Danny Joe Brown does. And
Wonder
Danny
if
Joe
you got
Brown
it.
wasn't
Well,
anybody
yeah,
yet.
I wonder if you got it from JY. Hmm.
Well, if Danny Joe Brown heard this album, more power to him then. But I can't necessarily say that I 100% think that Danny Joe Brown heard this album of all things. But I found that kind of funny that I'm like, whoa, that kind of sounds like Danny Joe Brown. But yeah, no, this is a great track. Like I said, very Skinner influenced. Sounds like it would fit on a Skinner album almost, but in a Styx way. And I like the way that they kind of do it their own way a little bit. I think it's a really good track. This is another one that was on the Wooden Nickel Best of album, which I found kind of weird that they picked this song of all things to put on the Best of album. But I think it's a great track. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, this album just keeps smoking, man. I agree. And you mentioned JY with that low, that those low type of growling vocals on this one, which is unfortunately, I don't think we hear those ever again on a Styx song, as far as I know. I mean, I've heard just about every one of them, and I can't, at least nothing's coming to mind right now. Maybe there is, I don't know. And when I was listening to this song, I was thinking, just like, man, it would have been so cool if JY did more solo albums, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He did City Slickers, which we'll talk about on another show in the future. We got a long catalog to go, but man, these rocking songs that JY writes are just really cool. And I think I probably know why, once they joined A&M, why they weren't letting them, sing more. But we'll talk about that next week or whenever it comes up again. But as far as the song goes, yeah, it's pretty cool, dude. And you mentioned it's very Southern rocky, which is not a bad thing. So, you know, it's a good song, man. I think this album just continues and continues to get better. So we'll move on to another Dennis song, Christopher, Mr. Christopher. What do you got?
So I actually have a lot on this song. I really dug deep into what this song. This is one of the only songs I could actually figure out what it was about, and like where it all came from. So Dennis and the Pedazzo brothers all went to Catholic school growing up. Dennis is very, very prominently Catholic, and this song was about Saint Christopher, of course, um, and the
That's
reason why he
I'm sorry about that. Is that the dude? Is that the guy? I'm not. I'm sorry. I used to be a Catholic a long time. Didn't they used to have St. Christopher medals they used to
yes,
give people? Okay, just making sure.
he's the patron saint of travelers.
I know that in the
Uh,
military, like I used to watch
yes,
MASH a lot, and they used to talk about giving the soldiers the St. Christopher medals. So okay,
yep.
just making sure.
Yep,
Okay,
the
sorry,
patron
man.
saint of travelers. They talk about it in the song. The kind of myth surrounding him is that he carried a child across the river to, like, he was like helping people escape Rome, basically,
Got it.
and it turned out that the child was a vision of Jesus.
So you
But
learn more than just sticks on this show.
you do, you
You
do.
get some tidbits.
And so what was happening around this time was, um, and this song is actually part of an overreaction almost. In the late 60s, around 69 or 70, right after the Second Vatican Council, um, the Pope reorganized the liturgical calendar. So all the different saints' feast days and stuff. And St. Christopher was actually taken off of the main liturgical calendar. His feast day was no longer celebrated as a major feast day. And so, as people naturally do, everyone overreacted and started like writing articles. What do you mean Saint Christopher's not a saint anymore? What do you mean this? What do you mean that? All this stuff, and that's why it's called Christopher, Mister Christopher, because if you listen to the lyrics, why did they take the saint away? Um,
Ah,
that's what the song's about. Is the common misconception that he was no longer a saint, but he was actually just taken off of the main calendar of feast days. He's still a saint. You can still There's still places in the world that do celebrate St. Christopher's feast day. St. Christopher medals are still very popular. But he is still a saint, but he's just no longer on the main calendar of feast days, and that's what this song was about.
yeah.
It was a very common misconception in the early '70s that he was no longer a saint. So that's what this song was about. Really great song. Um, Especially when you kind of know all that in the background. Um, it really is probably the first major instance of Dennis's faith coming into one of the songs, especially lyrically. Of course, later on, some big hit, "Show Me the Way," was a song about his faith. But yeah, I think this is a really cool track, and it's probably the song from the Wood and Nickel era that I could actually figure out the most about. So I
Okay.
found that was kind of cool.
Oh well, after knowing that, I kind of feel bad about my opinion on this song because I can actually, this is the only chink on the album, only chink in the armor on this album, in my opinion. I don't know. It just doesn't. I like changes on records. Don't get me wrong. I don't think everything should sound the same. But there's something about this song just never really resonated with me. I did like the story. I didn't know what it was about until you told me, but I knew there was a religious overtone to it. So now my cat's probably gonna give me here as well. Yeah, yeah. Hush. But it's just not. I don't know. It's never really appealed to me as a song in general. So that's all I'm gonna say. I feel bad by bashing it now. I didn't really bash it, but I just don't
No,
don't 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 like it. All right, then we move in to the last song, which is written by Dennis DeYoung, James Young, and that Brandel guy again. And talking about saving the best for last, in my opinion at least, but we'll get to Joe's first.
yeah, no, I completely agree. This is the best song on the album. Um, yeah, this is amazing. Really, for a JY song, it's very proggy. Much more than you necessarily usually see with a JY sung song. Um, the vocal harmonies are amazing. He's a man of miracles. I mean, just so great. Dennis on the organ, man. Holy crap. That organ, when that comes ripping in, oh boy. No, this is an amazing song. Easily my favorite song on the album. Um, and I think it's actually a perfect ending to the Wood and Nickel albums because if you would have told me when we were reviewing the first album this was the same band that played Equinox, I wouldn't have believed you.
Right.
I will now because it now they sound like they're a band that less than a year later is going to put out stuff like Sweet Madam Blue and Midnight Ride and all that stuff. Um, I think that the transition over these four albums has been so cool to kind of follow because you had the first album that was mainly covers. There was some good stuff on there. You could definitely hear the instrumentation, especially, had a lot of promise. The second album, I think they took a huge leap up. They really kind of got their shit together on the second album, had some really great stuff. Then they wandered a little bit too much on Serpent is Rising for my taste. It was a little bit more all over the place. And then they brought it back together on this album for me. I think this album is a huge step back up from Serpent is Rising. Extremely consistent album. Really sounds like they are on the cusp of breaking through, which we know they would. They signed their major label contract just a few months after this album came out. Not because of this album, but you can definitely
Right.
hear that musically, at least, they're ready to just go big or go home, and they went big.
Yeah.
So I really love this album. Really love this song. Great way to close out the album. What do you think of the song "Man of Miracles"?
Yeah, as I mentioned, saving the best for last, man. And this is what they've done here, in my opinion, dude. I love that almost, I don't know, when I think about the opening, I think of like medieval J.R.
Mm-hmm.
Tolkien stuff, you know what I mean? The way it sounds, it's really, really cool. And then it breaks into that, oh, and then man, it's just you're brought in immediately during this song, dude. Got some cool timpani drums in here through that,
Mhm.
which I like. And that one that and he mentioned the keys. Holy shit, that riff. The only thing I compare that riff is maybe the intro to Blue Collar Man, maybe.
Hmm.
But this is like really just nasty sounding and cool, dude. And
This
then
is
this
really one
turns
of the.
in, yeah, go ahead. I'm
I would
sorry.
say this is really one of the first songs that I can think of that was like fully keyboard led more than even guitars. I mean, there was some cool guitar stuff in this song, but the keyboard was doing the main riff. Like
Yeah.
the keyboard was really what was driving this song, and I think
Mhm.
it's amazing.
Yeah, this is just a great song, great rocking tune. Another kick-ass vocal from JY, man. And he mentioned a great way to end the wood and nickel the wood and nickel era of Styx, which I Styx tree. Did they ever use the word Styx tree? Like history, but Styx tree? Has that been
No, I
used?
think it's just Kiss. I think Kiss are the only band
No.
that's pompous enough to do that.
Well, I'm gonna be pompous enough and give it to them, Styx tree. But yeah, I mean, all in all, dude, this is a great album. And I gotta say, dude, it was really fun reviewing these first four albums with you, man. It really has been.
Yeah,
So
I've really loved going back and listening to these, especially Sticks 2 and this album. Those are
right.
two that I really loved getting to be able to go back and revisit.
All right, so how are we gonna close out the Wood and Nickel era next week, man? What are we gonna do?
Yeah, so we had a really cool idea to be able to close out the wooden nickel era here. And I don't know if anyone I know a couple people that actually joined our channel here and started watching our videos because of our appearance last week on Almost Human Live. But our
Thank you.
great friend Ralph Vieira, host of the Almost Human channel, Rock Metal Combat podcast, had us on his show last week to talk about all of Styx, and also to promote our show. He's been a huge help and support so far, and he is going to be our first guest next week here on this channel. We're going to be ranking the four Wooden Nickel albums, and we're also going to be making our own greatest hits, our own 10-track greatest hits albums from the Wooden Nickel era, as well as talking a little bit about the RCA re releases from the early 80s. So, just kind of to wrap up the Wooden Nickel era, finish our talking points, kind of conclude everything here with the Wooden Nickel era before we move into the A&M era, starting the week after that with Equinox. But we got some really cool stuff coming up. I'm really excited for that episode here to talk Wooden Nickel with Ralph. He is also, like us, really been diving back into the Wooden Nickel era recently, and he as well has been saying that he's been really enjoying getting to check out these albums again. So we're going to have a great time here next week. We really hope that everyone enjoys that.
Yeah, we're gonna start adding guests on some of our shows, and we're gonna start out with we're gonna start out big here with Ralph, man. Cool dude. I'm looking forward to talking this Wood and Nickel with him. And thank you for the Almost Human 56 invitation. That was a lot of fun talking about Styx. And for those who subscribed because of that, thank you. And tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell whoever, get us up there because we love talking Styx. We love for you to hear it. But anyway, thank you again, everybody, for liking, subscribing, viewing, whatever you're doing. We appreciate it. And Joseph, man, any final last words? Or you good?
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, I really, really love checking out this album again. Highly recommend this album to anyone who has not heard it yet. But yeah, thanks to everyone who's been checking us out, leaving comments. We've been getting some really great comments lately. I've been noticing that we've been getting some really lengthy comments on our channel and on our videos, and I really appreciate that. I love hearing what you guys have to say, especially for people who were here or who were there when these albums came out that really experienced these albums or saw the band back in the day. I love hearing what everyone has to say, because as much as Jerry and I would like to think, we don't know everything about Styx.
Oh,
So
no.
anything that you guys have to add to what we have said here on the channel, we really appreciate hearing from you. And we really love all of the feedback and all of the interactions we've gotten so far.
Right. Yeah. And I concur and I agree. So, you know, for Heavy Water 77, thank you, everybody. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next week when we do our greatest hits album from What a Nickel. Later.